let's just start with this. This is the Newman family. They are busy careers, busy kids, and if their widowed mother-in-law would just come and live with them, everybody's lives would be improved. But their house is too small and she wants her own private space. This is Betty, and she's getting older and she's starting to worry about Jeff, her son, who has Down syndrome. She has this plan that her older son is eventually going to take over all of her responsibilities. But how is Jeff going to fit in to that family's lives? And then this is Diane. I want to be Diane. Well, okay, maybe with not so much gray hair. She is a successful real estate agent. She's spending more and more time in her place out in the desert. Now, she still needs a place in town for that occasional listing presentation or inspection. But the desert is where her heart is. Her kids do not want her to sell the family home. But the cost of maintaining both households is limiting how and when Diane gets to retire. So we all know that there is a huge housing crisis. Shannon talked about it so eloquently, but this also means that we have a care crisis. It's becoming harder and harder for people to care for themselves and for their loved ones, and to be able to live out their lives when and how they choose in the support network that they have created. So, come on, you're right, there's a lag. If Shannon, if Diane, Betty, the Newmans, if they were able to add an ADU to their backyard, they'd be able to care for themselves and for their family, right? So that's why we're talking about ADUs, because not only is there a major affordable housing crisis, there's just a housing crisis all the way around. So I'm going to start with basics. Forgive me if this sounds stupid, but believe me, people have asked me this question. What does ADU stand for? It's accessory dwelling unit. It means it has to be twinsies with a house. It can't exist by itself. Now, if you're to take one of my units, plop it down into some vacant land in Joshua Tree, now that's a tiny home. So we're talking about a house that is twinsies with a main house. And that becomes important when we start talking about SB9. It is fully rentable. There are a lot of people who want ADUs. In fact, in the study from the SCOG, they found that more than 3 million properties in Southern California alone, we're not even talking about all of California, just in Southern California, has enough room to add an 800 square foot detached ADU in their backyard. We're not even going to touch smaller units or JDUs or other really cool solutions. So we're going to go over ADU rules. Shannon touched on them, and I'm just going to expand on it a little bit more, because my goal here is to give the real estate agents in the room talking points for when their clients say, well, can I add an ADU? And you can say a little bit more than, well, it says in the multiple list, room for an ADU. That may or may not be the case. So let's go over some of the rules. First of all, there's 3 different kinds of ADUs. Shannon touched on that. We have a converted garage, by far the most popular scheme to add an ADU. It is not as easy or as cheap as you might think it is, but it is the most popular idea. Second is a detached ADU. That's what we do. We make building gorgeous ADUs that are architectural, easy, and cost effective. And then the last one is the attached ADU or JADU. This is space that is carved out of your contiguous main dwelling. So that could be, let's say, a family room that you can now carve off from the rest of the house and make it a JADU, as long as it has an external entrance and exit, yeah? Or it could be an attached garage that you have converted into an ADU. If it's part of the contiguous house, that is a JADU. So how many can we add? For single, so there's different rules, single family, multifamily. You guys are here about multifamily, but you're going to get asked this question. Single family dwelling, you can have 1 detached ADU and 1 junior ADU. You do not get to get more than those, okay? Now, people say to me, but my neighbor has 2 houses in their backyard. Well, A, one of them might be illegal, and B, that might have been built before anybody really cared. So that's a different situation. This is the ADU law. 1 detached, one attached. Multifamily, here's where it gets good. So multifamily in my neck of the woods, which is the Glendale, La Piata area and everything, anyway. You can have 2 detached ADUs if you have the room for it, and then you can convert up to, depends on the area, but in Los Angeles, up to 25% of the units. So if you've got 8 units, you can convert existing space like a garage, a recreation room, a storage room, common room, whatever. You can convert that space into 2 additional ADUs. So where there was, well, actually, let's just do this. Oh, wait. Okay, I have a case study for you in a second. So it shows you what you can do with multifamily. Okay. All right, size. Now I'm mostly talking about single family because that's what I deal with, but it's not too different from multi. There is what I call the undeniable. The undeniable is 800 square feet or less, 16 feet high or lower, and 4 feet of setback on the back and on the sides. How much distance between the ADU and the main dwelling varies by city. Most of the time it's 6 feet, sometimes it's 10 feet, okay? So that's the size you can have. If you have this, the city cannot say no. They don't get the right to. Now, if you want it, can you go above 800? Yes, you can, but the city, depending on which city we're talking about, might say no, they get a vote, okay? A junior ADU between 220 square feet and 500 square feet, and lot size and lot coverage are not affected. So y'all are pretty sophisticated. You know what FAR is, right? So that's the amount of lot that's covered by your improvements. Before the ADU law, you had to pay attention to how much percentage of your lot you were going to cover with a structure. With the ADU law, it gets chucked out the window. So if you have enough room for the proper setbacks, you could fill up pretty much a whole damn lot with an ADU, okay? So that is a really important thing, especially in a high density area like we hope. On parking, this is another big deal, especially for investors. You will not be forced to replace the parking that is lost because you have converted or raised a structure in order to put in an ADU. So you got a 2-car garage, you want to convert that into an ADU, they can't say, and now we need you to build an additional 2-car garage for parking. Can't do that. So this is a big deal. This is also for multifamily. So you've got a 4-plex with a 4-car garage. You're going to convert that 4-car garage into 1 additional ADU. You do not have to replace that parking that was lost, okay? So that's really important. And you have to be a half mile of transit, which anywhere in an urban area, that's going to be fine. Rural area, like say Agoura Hills, that's another conversation altogether. So let's talk about use case. So if you had a 4-plex and you were to add 2 detached ADUs, now you have 6 units, and you were to convert a garage into an ADU, because that's 25%, that's now 7 units. Will, is that a multi-unit for your financing, or is that going to be residential?
This is a good question.
This is like kind of depends on who you talk to, right?
Exactly.
It depends on the underwriter. But clue, if you get a stupid head for an underwriter, it's on to the next lender. That's what I'm saying. So, right? That's what I'm saying. Have I done that before? Yes, maybe I have. If you want to develop this, and this is where it gets really exciting. So those of you who want to develop an apartment, some kind of apartment building, and you're looking at the density rules, the density rule says, okay, you can have 20 units. So you're like, okay, great. I'm going to do 20 units, and then I'm going to have all this ridiculous amount of space for common area, reaction room, yeah, storage, that's what it's going to be. So you get that, then you get your certificate of occupancy, and then you turn right around, and then you go ahead and add 20% of the units as additional ADUs from converted space. Plus, if you have the room, you can add another 2 ADUs. So taking what was permitted as density for 20 units and greatly upsizing that to create more housing, which the hope is that it would become more affordable.
Someone online is saying, has anyone else lost the audio? Can anyone else hear you? Can anyone else hear us online?
I blew the speakers out.
Okay, people, other people in here, okay.
Okay, right on. For the person who can't hear, I was gonna say, use the sound function.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Thank you.
All right. Here's another big one, property tax. By adding an ADU, you are not going to be entirely reassessed for your property tax. So what happens is your base tax remains in place. The tax assessor's office is going to assess the increased value of the improvement. So if the tax assessor office says, wow, we think your ADU is worth $150,000, they're gonna tax you $1.25 on the additional value, the $150,000. Now, I did a presentation last week and I was sitting right next to a member of the tax assessor's office. And here's what he told me, this was lots of fun. He told me that the tax assessor's office is working off a manual that gets updated once a year to give them guidelines on how to assess the value of an ADU. And he says, yeah, you're right, we're way behind on that one. So whatever you say, so shocking. So that means that let's just say that you build one of my ADUs and it cost you $300,000 to do it because you wanted high quality, first class, major tenants, or your mother-in-law's gonna move in there and she's judgy. So you do that, the tax assessor office is very likely to assess it at $150,000, and that's what your tax bill is going to go up by. So it's going to go up by a few $100, not many, many, many thousands of dollars. So that's really, really good news. The second piece of good news is impact fees. So impact fees, for those of you who don't know, I like to think of them as increased permit fees, right? Or highway robbery. You can go with either or, whichever way you want. But those of us who try to develop housing prior to ADU laws know that impact fees can increase your cost of build by tens of thousands of dollars. So the good news is that if your unit is under 750 square feet, the city doesn't get to give you impact fees, which is so awesome. It makes it more affordable to add this housing that we know so badly need. They are only going to be able to assess you an impact fee on the square footage between 750 and whatever it is that you actually build. Yes.
And every city will be different by then. It says, the state law says you can be charged impact fees.
Right.
So West Hollywood hasn't made up their mind yet. And on the 15th, if you go to that meeting, it's another thing that you're going to want to talk about is, no, we don't want impact fees over 750 because it makes it more unaffordable. The reason why we're doing ADUs is to make more affordable housing. So if you go to that meeting, please also bring up impact fees. No impact fees over 750 square feet. They're actually leaning towards no impact fees right now. So let's see what happens. But
that is amazing.
Yeah, I've spoke a couple times. I was the only one who spoke. And
I'm becoming a big fan of Reno.
yeah.
I don't want to drive here, but that's the sad It's a beautiful, beautiful place once I'm sure. Really, the whole point of ADUs, in my opinion, is to keep families and communities together. That's my opinion. All right, on cost. I think I'm talking to a pretty sophisticated audience, but I'm going to just touch on this anyway. Anytime you build a house, tiny house, huge mansion, your most expensive square footage is your first 350 square feet, because most of your soft top costs are going to be front loaded right there, and they're not going to change very much no matter how big you get. So when somebody says to you, you want how much for a studio ADU? That's ridiculous on a cost per square foot. I built a 6,000 square foot mansion and it was less per square foot. Yeah, you know what? Same thing in building as it is in selling houses. Tiny house costs more per square foot than big house. That's just the way it is. Cost to build, highly individual. When Chuck in the truck says it's going to cost you this many shekels to build an ADU, and he hasn't even asked you where, he's not taking into account, is there slope, is there soil problems, is there access problems, what's going on there, is it really tight, is it really easy, he has no idea, what's the level of finish, what is it designed like, he has no idea. You should look at it as, at best, just kind of information, but it doesn't bear on how much it's going to cost you to do an ADU. This comes from a slide from a presentation done by Maxible. Maxible is a huge ADU consultant firm out of San Diego, and she was saying that costs have gone up quite a bit. And so this is what you can expect for structure, for hard costs. for sticks and bricks, not your design, not your permits, not your engineering fee, not your survey, none of that, okay? So garage conversion, hard cost, about 110. 1 bedroom, 225, 2 bedroom, about 225, and a 2 to 3 bedroom, about 375. You're gonna be adding somewhere between 35,000 and 75,000 for soft costs, depending on who you use and how you do it, and what city you're in, what kind of permit fees they are, and how much raw work really needs to be done. Timing. When I started my company, I wanted to be a prefab only company because in my opinion, that is the future. Prefab has become expensive for a whole bunch of reasons we won't get into, but that is why I have this chart. And it's just worth covering anyway, because alternative building methods are coming, yeah? So site built, you're looking at design 2 to 4 months, and that's only if you actually know what you're doing and you respond to your architect immediately. Instead of, they give you designs and then you sit on it while you crowdsource whether or not this is good, and then you say, well, yes, this is what I want to do. So design takes much longer than you think it's going to take. Getting a price quote, a good one, an actual one, not the, gee, I think it'll be that. That's going to take time. Permits, going to take time. City of Los Angeles to get a utility meter, an electric meter, right now it's running close to a year. So 4 months is what it was pre-COVID. Now it's a little tougher to estimate. Construction time in your backyard, 6 to 8 months, and that's if everything goes well. So you're looking at a year to almost 2 years from concept to keys, yeah? Prefab cuts out a lot of that because it is pre-designed. You either like what I have or you don't, and if you don't, we won't get to work together, bummer, but I gotta die. And so we cut out a lot of that timing because of the pre-design, and the factory process is a lot more efficient. Active construction time in your yard, 6 weeks, 2 weeks to put the foundation, transfer utilities, 1 day to install it, 2 weeks to clean it up. Kendall, that does not add up to 6. Yeah, because I like to promise something better than it's actually, do something better than we actually promise. So 9 months total. Financing, we touched on this. Second position, HELOC, is going to be interest only, because I'm assuming your clients already have a bump in first mortgage they do not want to touch. So second position, HELOC is out there. Construction financing is always a good idea, and they do have second position, construction financing. 203K renovation loan is another great product as long as you are under the federal guidelines. So I think it's for multifamily, what is it, 998 or something like that? For single family, it's 972. Yeah, so as long as your total cost for the paying off the first loan and the renovations you're planning to do is under 972 for single family, then you can use a 203K renovation loan. A note on the $40,000 EDU grant. If you go to my blog, I actually did an interview with the director of training and outreach for college HSA, so there's some really good information on there. Shannon, I just wanted to say you might want to take a look at the chart for the income limits in the city of Los Angeles, 180,000. So a little bit higher than the 158, which makes it even easier and better. The income limits are actually quite generous, so a lot of people can qualify. There is room for about 2,500 of those grants, and the HFSA does not expect to run out of money for a couple of years, and the program is going so well, they very much expect for it to get renewed and refunded. So good program to really look at. I think you guys all know about this one. The only one I really want to get at to is larger is not better, no matter what your boyfriend told you. Seriously. What's really important is great design. If you have a larger ADU, it's going to cost you more money, it's going to take up more of your land, you're going to have less of outdoor space. If you have a smaller unit that's really well designed, that takes advantage of the California indoor-outdoor lifestyle, that can actually rent better, live better, and it contribute more value to your single-family house or your multifamily. So that's just a word to the wise. All right, here's my process in working, and I think it's a reasonable outline to think about what do we do to build an ADU. First thing you want to do is just go check it online, make sure from a satellite view, does it look like there's enough room? awesome new tool that is free, although I'm easier, is called SymbianBuild.com. It's build.symbian, SYMBIUN, weird spelling. But you can put it in there, it pulls up the satellite imagery, has an overlay of the property lines, and it makes it really easy to see. Does it look like there's enough space there? You can also just text me the address and I can tell you, because I'm sitting at a desk and I've got Symbian up on my computer all the time. The next thing that you can do, and I did develop this service just for real estate agents, 36 years as a real estate agent, I know what you need during the inspection phase. So if your buyer, multi-unit or single family, is expecting to be able to add an ADU, you might want to look at something like this. Now, I am doing it not as an ADU consultant, because there are better people for that. I am doing this as a real estate agent who understands that what you really need is someone who tells them the truth, but also makes them feel like their dreams are attainable and possible and reasonable for the property that they've sold. So the ADU feasibility inspection report actually came from me coming up and doing a bid on a build, and I just looked at that and I said, who told you you could build an ADU here? I mean, I see all that space, but this is going to cost so much money because of the following reason. He says, I hired an ADU consultant and they never told me those things. And I went, oh dear God, we need this inspection. So $425, $75 for off to anybody that says that they heard me speak. You get a written report, it's an on-site inspection, and all I'm trying to do is to help identify the complexities of what might happen to someone who wants to add a detached ADU. This is not for garage conversions, it's not for JDUs. Those are actually pretty simple. This is just looking at a lot and helping your client understand the complexities of what might be impacting their bill. Last one, the next one then is the juicy stuff. That's where you design and go through plan check and get your final bids, so you know what it's going to take to actually build. We charge for that. Anybody who is really professional is going to charge you for that, and we're charging $15,000. Again, there's a deal for anybody who says that they heard me speak. And then construction. That's the last one. So, do you want to do SB9? I don't know if you have time.
Yeah, let's touch on it. We've talked about it this year many times, but
Okay.
if you want to do like a brief overview of it, please.
Yeah,
do,
this is a
because-
reminder, I am not an SB9 expert, but I thought because you guys are multi-unit, you might be more interested in the average Joe. So SB9 is designed for Betty. So remember how I told you she wanted her older son to take over and things, and eventually incorporate Jeff and what's going on. So she wants to put an ADU in her backyard. Okay, well, here's the problem. She lives in Glendale, and Jeff and her older son cannot afford to live in Glendale. He's living in Buckall, I don't even know, Palmdale right now. He's out there, and he's raising his family out in Palmdale because that's where he can afford to live. So when Betty passes away, what is he gonna do? Uproot his young family and drag them back to Glendale, a place they've never been to? What if Betty were able to use SB9 to build a house for her son? This is Dave. He looks pretty hapless. He looks like that's about all he can afford is to live in Palmdale. So this is, I'm a judgy bitch. That's sorry. Yeah, right, I figured this is the place for it, right? Okay, so the goal for SB9 is to create more saleable homes. ADU was to create just more housing. This is saleable homes. So how do we do it? You can either do a lot split, which everybody calls SB9 a lot split law, right? But that's a little bit of a misnomer. It's also, you can just build 2 houses on a lot, and 2 people could own that lot. So that's perfect for Dave. He could own his house, Betty owns her house, they didn't split the lot. You've really got kind of like a little family compound going on there, right? So this is an illustration of what it might look like. They say typical LA lot. How many LA lots are 150 feet deep, for God's sake? But anyway, that's what it said, whatever, this is what it looks like. So now we have there was 1 house. There's now a house and an ADU and a duplex. So where there was 1 house, now there is 4, and there can be 4 different owners. That's what's so flippin' cool. We can start having people buy something and start that generational wealth that we always talk about in residential real estate, which is not available to people now in the city of Los Angeles or Glendale, where I am. Lot split size, new lot can't be less than 40% of the original lot. So you can't cut off like this tiny little sliver and call it a day, right? So 40%, and the minimum lot size is 1,200 square feet. And the old lot, the remaining lot, cannot be smaller than 2,400 square feet. There's a lot of restrictions. Okay, we think that this is just like cracking the door open a little bit. So they put all these restrictions in so the NIMBYs can just calm them down, right? So you can't do it if you're in fire or flood hazard zone. Actually, really any of the big environmental hazard zones can't do it. Can't do it if you're in historic zone. HOAs have all of the right to block it, and they will, trust me. And cities, there was a lot of space in this law to allow cities to block it. I always said, looking at you, San Marino, right? So the cities who don't want to have this kind of density, it's easy for them to block it. So, you know, it's not a panacea, but it is coming, and it's a great way to create housing. There is an owner covenant for 3 years, so the owner needs to stay in one of the lots for 3 years after it's been split. And if you've got an owner that owns 2 lots side by side, they don't get to split both of them. They only get to do one. So they didn't want to see a proliferation of developers helicoptering in and saying, we're gonna split all these lots, build lots of houses, and whoop, there you go. They didn't want that. And you can only split it once. So if you got yourself such an enormous lot, you want to split that puppy, that's cool. There's no double dipping. Like it's not hygienic. You can't double dip, you can only do it once, okay? All right, so I kind of mentioned this, but ADU, to create more housing, rental or family housing, it's widely available. There is no owner covenant, and you can use this on a multifamily. SB 9, its purpose is to create saleable properties. It's very restrictive. There is an owner covenant, and multifamily, no bueno. So that's it.